What's going on, guys? It's Cimo. So today I'm bringing to you a meta-analysis for the June 2019 format. The WCQ season is in full swing. We have the Central American WCQ, I believe, this weekend, followed by the South American WCQ, the North American one towards the end of the month, followed by the European one as well. And I know we still have the UK Nationals and tons of other large events coming up. The Yu-Gi-Oh! Season of the 2018-2019 is coming to a close, so this is all the more reason you're going to want to be up to date on what the top meta strategies entail. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get right into it. So this past weekend we had two major events take place. We had the German National as well as YCS Knoxville, and these are the two largest events that are going to be leading into the WCQ season. I know we have the UK Nationals, which should have a very high turnout as well, but this is kind of what the first glimpse we're going to have going into this month. So here is the top 64 breakdown from the German National. The German National had over 1,000 participants. I don't remember the exact number, but they had to play a ton of rounds, and it did cut to a top 64, which is amazing by turnout standards. And judging by this top 64, I think the biggest and most surprising thing here is that Salamangreat is taking up like over a third, almost getting very close to one half of this top 64. Now, this isn't exactly surprising that Salamangreat is doing well. I think it's surprising that it did this well because, yes, while Salamangreat is touted as one of the best decks of the current format, I don't think people put their money on it to have this much success. And even though it did take up a majority of the top cut, it did make it all the way to the finals. The deck that managed to take the event was Altergeist. Yes, a deck that a lot of people have ruled out as being completely just viable whatsoever. Altergeist managed to win the event. Now, it's not like Altergeist is incapable of winning. It's definitely had its fair share of success in the past, but it was just something that caught a lot of people off guard. But definitely congratulations to the winner of the German National. Now, going forward, Salamangreat is still going to be a very viable option. I think one of the things that's very good about Salamangreat is the sheer number of hand traps that the deck can play, going up against these major combo decks like your Orcust decks, like your Thunder Dragon decks, even Sky Striker to a degree, because they do have a lot of cards that can halt that deck as well. Being able to play all these cards as well as being able to play your main engine, since you really only need a single card to get everything going, is very valuable. Not to mention, you have the flexibility in the fact that you can play additional copies of Salamangreat Roar. I've seen a trend where a lot of these players are starting to play 2 copies of Roar in their deck, or excuse me, 2 copies of Rage, Rage being a way to out Mystic Mind, which is a more in-archetype way of handling the card as opposed to running Twin Twister. Now, the Salamangreat players are still running Twin Twister because Mystic Mind is that large of a threat. However, just having the built-in Rage at your disposal means not only you have a way to out Mystic Mind, but Rage is just a generally good card. I mean, if you have a monster that was Reincarnation Link summoned, you're going to be able to pop a ton of cards for one, and just having a Dweller backed by a Rage seems pretty strong, especially against a lot of these graveyard-reliant matchups. Now, the second highest represented deck at the German National was Sky Striker. When it comes to Sky Striker, it's really not a surprise that this deck is still doing well either. Sure, it might have incurred the most hits from the most recent Forbidden and Limited list. However, that doesn't mean the deck is unplayable. With one Kagari, the deck can still do plenty of things. Multi-roll is still at 3, as so is Engage, and not to mention the new tool at their disposal, Mystic Mind, has been making a lot of their matchups easier. What's so crazy about Mystic Mind being integrated into Sky Striker is that they can basically just set up with a board of Widow Anchors and all these other different spells, steal all of your monsters, then just play an Area 0 over Mystic Mind. They're no longer under the effects. Then they can just go in and OTK you, no sweat. Sky Striker just has a really solid, it's just a very solid deck. There's really nothing else to it. It's consistent, it's powerful, it's a toolbox deck that can pretty much access anything it wants to at any given time, and that's why it's been able to persist and be one of the strongest decks for the better part of the last year. Now, there were some other decks as well, such as Orcust and Thunder Dragon, but surprisingly, Thunder Dragon did not have much representation in the top 64 of the German National whatsoever. I mean, I think there was also like Altergeist that had a very similar representation. I think it might have only had like 3, so like 1 less than Thunder Dragon being at 4. That's really not that big of a deal, but when you look at it comparatively, that actually kind of says a lot. A lot of people were kind of off of Danger Thunder Dragon as a whole, and we can kind of see here, at least by the European standards, Thunder Dragon is not looking too popular. There were some other decks mixed in there as well. I think there was like a couple dinosaur, there was like some pendulum decks, and a couple of other rogue decks that made the top 64 as well. But these are decks that we've kind of known are at the rogue category that have been able to top a YCS here and there, so this really isn't too big of a surprise. But now I want to talk about YCS Knoxville, because when you look at this pie chart in comparison to the one from the German National, it tells a very different story of how the meta is shaping up. Because when you look at the top 32 breakdown from YCS Knoxville, which I believe had about 890 players if my memory serves correctly, about on par with the German National, just maybe one round less in terms of Swiss rounds, Danger Thunder Dragon actually had very high representation in this top 32 cut. A lot of the top players have actually been playing this deck for the better part of the last few months. We saw this, you know, with all the other past YCSs, even going into like YCS Ecuador and things like that. But now we see Danger Thunder Dragon kind of just coming out of nowhere and really taking YCS Knoxville by storm. So much so that it also managed to get first place. So I want to go ahead and talk about Danger Thunder Dragon a little bit, because yeah, it's been a deck that we've known about, and it's a deck that really hasn't gone anywhere. It's kind of fallen out of favor relatively in the last couple of months, but now it's back, and this is going to be a heavy contender for the WCQ format. So I want to go ahead and start off with a top 32 list by Gabriel Vargas, the NAWCQ champion, I believe, of last year. And when you look at this list, I mean, yeah, it's Danger Thunder Dragon. We do have the Chaos Armageddon prize card playing a role here, and we're going to see that in another list shortly here as well. So maybe the prize card does play a little bit of a role here. I know it gives you another level 8, it allows you to recycle Eclipse Wyvern multiple times, and that is very powerful. That allows you to do something to the deck that you weren't previously able to do without it. So I don't know if that's like the reason the deck did so well, but regardless, I can definitely say it helped contribute to the deck's success. You've got a new tool in Omni Dragon Brotor, which is just amazing in being able to search cards like Chaos Dragon Levianeer, which is like one of the best cards in your deck. And not to mention, they also have new tools at their disposal that we start to see a lot more commonly, like Salafond, the Sky Prison. I probably completely butchered the name of that, but basically, this is like a rank 8 like Necro Valley, which basically means when you're going up against your Orcust matchup, your Salamangreat matchup, it's like Dweller, but like almost better, because they're not going to be able to special summon anything out of the graveyard, and it pretty much puts them on a complete lockdown. Danger Thunder Dragon has a very good strength in that it's very similar to Orcust, where it's building a massive board because it is a combo deck, but the boards that Danger Thunder Dragon builds are just immensely more powerful, and the deck can inherently play through a lot more disruptors solely because of the fact that it has a lot more extenders. Orcust has to play some specific key cards that don't necessarily contribute as extenders, but they're part of the deck's key combo, where when it comes to Danger Thunder Dragon, they don't have to worry about that as much. Pretty much the entire deck is comprised of extenders because the majority of their end combo rests in the extra deck rather than cards in the main deck, like compared to Orcust when you got stuff like Fogblade and different things like that. So that's part of the reason the deck does see some success. It also just has the ability to just draw through its decks. You're going to see those side deck cards a lot more frequently just because you have all the danger monsters, you have multiple copies of Saryuja, and we're going to talk about that now when we get into Faisal Khan's top 8 Danger Thunder list. Very similar to Gabriel Vargas. There's a couple differences here. He opted to main deck Phantasme just to sculpt his hand and make sure he got the cards that he needed for any given situation. One thing Faisal opted to play was Crystal Wing over Hot Red Dragon Archfiend Abyss, solely because of the fact that you can also negate cards that kind of out these boards, such as Electric Virus or any other monster-based effect. The thing is, when it comes to Crystal Wing versus Abyss, Crystal Wing is better against the combo decks because the combo decks are going to play a lot more monster effects, whereas Hot Red Dragon Archfiend Abyss is better against the control decks like Salamangreat and Sky Striker because they're going to play more tools that aren't going to be in the form of monster effects to break your boards. Widow Anchor, Evenly Matched, things like that. And so by opting for the Crystal Wing, favoring that there's going to be a lot more combo decks in the field, it managed to pay off, and that's why he got that top 8 finish. I also want to mention he was side decking Spell Canceller, which we haven't seen since what, like Nekroz format? And I think that's so cool. Again, because you're able to draw through so many cards in your deck because of the dangers in Saryuja and so forth, you're able to get to that Spell Canceller, and you don't really use your normal summon in this deck outside of like Battery Man, Solar, so you can just drop Spell Counselor, it outs Mystic Mine, it outs like Sky Striker basically entirely, and it's a way to kind of auto-win those spell-heavy matchups. So congrats to Faisal, I think that was pretty cool to see. And now I want to wrap up this discussion talking about Orcust, because that's the last of the big four I have not yet discussed, and Orcust has still been doing very well. It did well at the German National, and it had the highest representation at YCS Knoxville. I think just getting one more top cut slot than Danger Thunder by comparison at 10 compared to 9, but Orcust is still going strong. Here's a list from Mark Myatt, I believe, and it was a top 16 list. Now what's interesting is that a lot of players are starting to deviate away from cards like Neo Space Connector because they lose to certain cards, and we're starting to see some different engines pop up here. I mean, we're starting to see the main cards like Armageddon Knight and Dark Grepher, just because they can help play around cards like Impermanence better. We're starting to see like the Recycler engine, which isn't played in this deck, but I've seen it in plenty of other decks as well for the very same reason. It's interesting to see this just because there was also a copy of Mystic Mine in the deck as well, and I think that's what made this so special. That's also why I wanted to bring this profile to you guys. Main reason is because when you're going up against any matchup going second playing Orcust, you can just drop Mystic Mine, and now you can do your entire combo completely unimpeded because your opponent isn't going to be using any monster effects, any hand traps, Lancia, anything like that, because Mystic Mine is active on the field, and your opponent is going to control more monsters than you. Not to mention, Orcust doesn't really summon a ton of monsters when it does its combo. It plays a lot of them, but it pretty much only plays like 2 or 3 on the field at once. So going up against these huge combo decks or something like Salamangreat that's going to end on 2 or 3 monsters more often than not, you're going to be able to play under Mystic Mine rather freely, and I think it's pretty cool to see a card like that being played in a combo deck like Orcust. Will this be a new trend? I'm not too sure, but I just want to make sure I brought that to you guys just so you have some food for thought. Moving forward, this kind of looks like how things are going to be. We're going to be in a bit of a 4-deck format here between Salamangreat, Sky Striker, Danger Thunder, and Danger Orcust, and it's going to be really cool to see which decks come out on top and how the meta starts to shift from event to event to event, because there's still plenty of weeks before each respective WCQ, and there's going to be a lot to see. So guys, that's going to do it for my meta analysis. Let me know down in the comments what you guys think. I'd really love to hear your thoughts. So guys, thank you so much for watching the video. Be sure to like the video as always, subscribe to the channel for more amazing Yu-Gi-Oh! Content, and if you found this video helpful, consider supporting me on Patreon or becoming a YouTube channel member, because just by showing your support in any way that you can, you're investing in my ability to continue bringing you amazing Yu-Gi-Oh! Content. So thanks so much again, and we'll see you next time.